listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again. Today, we have another show lined up for y'all. We have our special guest for today. He's going to talk to us about his book, Growth. His name is Russ Haddad. You can go to his website, russhaddad.com. His book is available right now. You can get it right on his website. It's russhaddad.com/about-growth. First and foremost, thank you for taking time talking to us today, man. How you doing right now?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So I know you have an amazing story. That's what allowed you to write this book. Tell us a little bit, what was the circumstance that allowed you to say, you know what, I need to write this on paper?
Well, it kind of has a lot of fits and starts, honestly. The catalyst really was in COVID. I had extra time, like many people had extra time, and I noticed that I had a whole bunch, lots of stuff on paper, lots of writings from back in my teenage years, going all the way back almost 40 years. Now, COVID allowed me to take some time to actually notice that I had that, but also that maybe it was time to put it all together and compile it and put it out there to express my feelings. And really, the initial reason why I got into writing poetry, and it was really almost accidental, but also, I guess, an intuitive sort of a thing where my father passed away when I was 12 years old. And it really kind of became a coping mechanism. I started writing poetry for the high school newspaper way back when. And it quickly became just an outlet, a way for me to kind of express myself. And I was a bashful kid, and I wasn't always good with showing emotion. And this really was the way for me to express who I was and what I was feeling and where I was in life. And really, growth covers 3 stages of my life. Kind of that teenage year span from 16 to 24, and then I kind of after high school, college, graduation, and starting a new professional life and starting a family, and that second stage. Second phase of my life, that's where it kind of came out in the second part of my life. And then into the third part, and really what I call continuing maturity, is just kind of a little bit more sophisticated, going through life experiences, going through a divorce, went through rearing a child and moving around different parts of the country, and starting new too, another reset, getting me married. So all those things kind of came together, and I was able to compile them and kind of portray a pathway of life that really ended up with, I guess, rediscovered more than anything else.
When it comes to your personal story, you also, as a professional, you have experience with marketing operations, positions in radio, journalism, economic development, public service positions. With all these different variety of fields that you've been able to experience, serving in, is there a common theme that you learn, being able to be in those different positions that you use to today?
Well, it's kind of funny. A lot of the jobs I've had kind of go against kind of I'm an introvert at the heart of things. Excuse me. And what I've kind of always been attracted to are these jobs that kind of try to pull me out of my shell. So a lot of things that I kind of have used and focused on with any of those positions has really to be asking questions. If I don't know the answer, trying to find it, being responsive, trying to do my best to put myself in other people's shoes, and not so much looking at it from my perspective, but trying to understand where they're coming from, where that other person, whether it's a one-on-one or a group or a constituency, when I've done some political work, where are they coming from? What are their needs? And that's really kind of transcended my career. And I've always whether it's been a private job in the private sector or in the public service area, I've really always figured that my role in life is to help others. And that's kind of where the book kind of comes in, is I'm hoping that people walk away from growth, seeing that other people have gone through experiences that they may have. I certainly am not unique in a lot of things. But I really do think that if others can read and see that I've gone through these things and I've endured and I've persisted and I've come through that, maybe with hopefully as a better person, that they can do the same thing.
And people can again get this book, Growth, on Amazon right now. Is available at this moment. When you look at the different stages of life, tell us a little bit about the early years of you starting to write in high school and how that evolved into you getting into poetry.
Yeah, I think the first stage of my life, when I call maturing, is, the high school and college years. It's coming into your own, little idealistic. You really kind of have a kind of a Pollyannish sort of viewpoint with a lot of things, but also that insecurity of the teen angst of not really sure what you're doing is the right thing, or what people may be thinking of you, or whatever it may be. But as going in through college and getting through that, gaining more confidence, that's kind of the big part of that first phase, is kind of going through, what is it that I'm doing, and how do I set the stage to kind of move on to different parts of life, but also just the establishing who you are as a person, and how you want to treat other people as well. That's so I really kind of thought that first period of my life that I covered in Growth is about creating that foundation of who I am and who I want to be. And that kind of grew into later, again, as I went into the second phase of my life, I kind of the writing became a little bit more sophisticated. I'm hoping, and I hate judging myself. I'm still always, I guess, going to be self-aware as far as self-conscious. Maybe that's the better word to say. Self-conscious about kind of how I'm portrayed and everything like that. But I hope people see that a little bit more sophistication, a little bit more as you go through more experiences in life. Maybe there's even a little bit more jadedness. But I want, if anything, authenticity. I kind of react to things as they come along through life, and then just reflect, especially with a divorce and how it affected, custody with my child, and where I was in life at that time. That was a troublesome period in that second period of my life. And, being able to write things down on paper, at times, and there were stretches where I wasn't doing any writing. I was busy with work, and life really, as you all know, gets in the way, many times. And so it was kind of a choppy writing during that second phase, but it was all about, being able to push through some really hard times. But putting things on paper again became the way that I could express myself to myself just as much as anybody else. So I don't get to the point where I get too down or too up or whatever, the swings of an extremes of emotion that may happen. And the final stage, the third stage of growth, where it really was, I became an established person. I kind of knew who I was. But I think I changed because I was able to take those past experiences and do my best to improve who I was as a person, how I treated others. And going back to the divorce, I realized, looking back in that third phase to the second phase, that, I didn't do things the right way all the time. And neither one of us in that relationship did. But, to a certain degree, there was a level of forgiveness to my ex-wife that, I look back now and I understood that, we had a child together. We did the best we could. We raised a darn good kid who's, gotten through college and is doing well as far as, being employed and living his life up in Boston. And, it was just being able to come through all that. And really, they were all, each stage of those phases was a way to set up the next stage. I learned things from every part of that to get to where I am today. And I still look back and I'm still learning, as I think everybody is as they grow. And I think it's just another jumping off point to the next phase of my life, which will be, I'm 55 years old. It'll be nearing the end stages, over the next 20, 30 years. Maybe, I hope it goes that long. But yeah, it's all about moving forward, I think.
Once again, talk to our guest today, Russ Haddad. You can go to his website, russhaddad.com, and you can get his book, Growth, on Amazon or his website. And I like the line you said earlier, push through hard times. And I think that is the definition of progress. If you don't see progress, you probably see regret. You probably see frustration. You probably see missed opportunities. And when it comes to being comfortable versus discomfort, I just talked to someone recently and they talked about how the moment we become comfortable, discomfort is waiting. Because in order for you to grow, you got to face things that are not comfortable. So for you, how did you look at new chapters in life that met with, challenges to be that opportunity for you to rise to the occasion?
Well, that's a great question. And I truly believe what you just said. And I think I've always been kind of a type of person who's jumped in with both feet when it comes to challenges, for better or worse, because sometimes that didn't always work out the right way. But a lot of times it's, I'm a scrapper. I don't like to give up when I feel like I'm doing the right thing. And again, that doesn't always end up the way I wanted it or anybody wanted it. But I think that's the big part, confronting that challenge, whatever it may be, that hard time, and doing the best you can to kind of assess, analyze, but don't lose the human side of what's going on. And sometimes where I have gone wrong is I have forgotten that. I've forgotten that other people are being affected by my behaviors. And knowing that it's just not about my world, because sometimes I've fallen into that bubble that sometimes people get into, is that it's all about me. It's just affecting me. But you know what? There's a lot of ripples effects. And I think that's where maybe I've improved, where, I am more cognizant of what I'm doing. And I do this is personal life and with professional life. What I do, how is it affecting others? And is it positive or negative? And if it's negative, how do I communicate and make that better? How do I be more inclusive and bring that other person or that group of people in, where I may be creating something there, and how do we work through it together? And in the end, maybe that's how I've worked through hard times over the last 20 years or so, especially, is that whether it's from family, friends, colleagues in work, finding a way to find that common bond. We're all because we're all sort of in the same boat to a certain degree. So how are we all kind of working together? Maybe they have better ideas than I do, and how can I implement what they're doing to help me get through things? So a lot of it is collaboration and cooperativeness, but also getting to know the other people involved, and again, putting myself in other people's shoes. That really helps me push through and persevere through hard times.
Yeah, I always get thoughts run through my head when I have these conversations sometimes on the show, and can't help to think, but I can't imagine that a good life is always under construction.
I totally agree with that. Yes,
a
absolutely.
not so good life is part of construction ignored, because there comes to a point where someone told me this is a point to return, back to the basics, and then there's a point of no return.
And you know what? I've kind of seen this and come to realizations that life is just is a series of resets. And I think you said it perfectly there. But there are times when you could, if you don't recognize it, there is a point of no return. But man, you got to be able to stop yourself every once in a while and look back and say, what am I doing here? And kind of how will it impact me as an individual, people around me, but also society.
Yeah. And the reason why I want to mention that is because the title of your book, Growth. I mean, that's the whole point. Growth is movement. Growth is growing in the right way. And that right way is defined by your reality, is defined by your circumstances as far as like how you need to respond. And for you, how did you measure, evaluating your life to get to the better days as far as prepping yourself and saying, okay, this is what I must do now. So years from now, I can look back and say, I'm glad I actually did that. Because if you don't do your part, it can be detrimental to your future.
That's another fantastic question. Really, excuse me. I've been fortunate to be in positions where, through public service, through work in state, local, and federal governments, where I've been able to see things and interact with certain, policies and activities where I really have been able to witness, good and some bad in others. And I think the big part of that has been learning. I think my brain just keeps coming back to learning. I've learned from others. I've been able to have good people in my life who've been able to scream at me sometimes and say, what are you doing? And allowing me to take a step back and really assess what I'm doing. And in reviewing, compiling all these poems over the last 40 years when I published Growth, I was able to really kind of then look back at everything that I've done, how I had written, and rereading something from 40 years ago really is kind of makes me, I was thinking that back then, it brought me back to these eras in my life that really like, geez, what was going on in my life at that time? How did that help me? The reflection part was pretty important during that, when I was putting everything together, leading up to kind of how I behaved back in those times, especially, and I'm going to refer back to my divorce again, where it was not a pretty divorce. It was very cantankerous. It was very, there's a lot of battles with that. And to a certain degree, I was embarrassed. When I look back, I'm embarrassed that, I at times may put my son in the middle of it. We, as a peer, my ex-wife and I put our son in the middle of things because we took it too personally, as far as it was about me and her, not about him. We lost track. We lost sight of what was supposed to be important. And I kind of use that as the guiding point. What really is supposed to be the important thing I'm supposed to be thinking about? Me as a person, and then if I can impart that to others. But I owe a lot to mentors and other people who have come through my life that have kind of helped guide me through some really hard times, just kind of being there, just allowing me to talk when I needed to talk, or giving me advice, or slapping me upside the head, to use, some colloquial terms there. But, just to be willing to say, stop, think about what you're doing, and maybe you should be doing something differently.
And the other thing about growth is the evidence of process and increasing. And the $1 million question would be, what is increasing? You know, is your fear increasing or your faith increasing? You know, is your character increasing or is your character decreasing? Is your North Star increasing or no stars increasing? Like, are you all over the map?
And I know a lot of that is for other people to judge as they interact with me, but I really hope and I feel like all the positives I've done more positive than negative since within this growth period of my life. It's really a great way of putting things, Shemaiah. It was really you really kind of hit it on the head with that is my character better than it was before? Is my, I'm not the most religious person, but my faith as in spiritualism, I can appreciate that more now. Has that increased? Has my faith in other people increased? And in times like this, when we have so much craziness going on in the world and uncertainty and polarization, sometimes that's hard to have that faith in your fellow man. But I really try hard to find the positive. I'm not always successful, but again, it goes back to finding where they're coming from and finding out maybe what their perspective is and help me understand. And hopefully through that, we talk more and they understand where I'm coming from. But I think you put that well. I mean, those are the markers in life that aren't necessarily scientific, but you know it, and others can see it as you interact with them.
It's like mile markers. They kind of point you where you are right now. And sometimes we can get delusional in where we want to be versus what we really are at that moment in time.
I totally agree. Yeah, I think that's a really fantastic way of putting it. Mile markers.
And I like how you talked about life being a series of resets, because I think within those resets is like we don't necessarily reset back to ground zero, but we reset to the point where there was pain, because if you don't deal with that pain gets deeper and increases. So if we miss those opportunities to deal with, reality, well, then the next mile marker, it might be even double, treble, because it's going to be deeper, it's going to be bigger, it's going to be, because you're dealing with something that has not been dealt before.
And before you know it, you're in an abyss where you can't escape. It just becomes a recurring vicious cycle. That's hopefully through growth, people will see that you can come out of it. You can go through the worst of times. Yeah. And maybe that's too idealistic on my part. Maybe, I don't know. But I really hope people get the sense that, if I can push through things, that they can do the same thing. And we help each other grow as we move forward.
We've been talking to our guest, Russ Haddad. You can go to his website, russhaddad.com. You can go to Amazon right now and get his book. Growth is available. So when it comes to good, bad, and different, I mean, life is life and different stages in life. Then you know what the funny thing is? This just popped in my head. Bear with me. You know how you go to school, from grade school, middle school, high school, college, if you go to college. You know what's interesting? It's always the first day you're so nervous. I mean, you probably got your clothes ready the night before. You're like, man, I'm so excited. But at the same time, you're also nervous. You're nervous about the school subject or the teacher or your, peers or whatever. But you know what's interesting? By the end of that year, you know where you stand, if you're going to the next grade or not. And I feel like that's the same thing with the stations in life. By the end of that stage, you know if the next one's going to be, pretty bad or pretty good. But pretty good, it still means that, like I said, from a conversation I had with someone before, where discomfort is waiting. But you can know that discomfort is going to keep you on your toes, and that's the difference.
That first day of your first day of school is a great analogy. In that first year of school, getting through that year is a great analogy because that is what it feels like. You're always, what is it? Graduation isn't an ending, it's a commencement. And I think every end period, it really is a beginning.
Yeah, definitely. Man, great conversation,
I hope we
man.
never lose that excitement and that nervous anxiety, because I think that's part of propelling you to try to do new things in life and to learn.
Yeah. If there's no excitement, then you probably not learn anything, right?
That's true.
But man, I think this important conversation. A lot of people, I think, like you said earlier in the show, a lot of people are trying to look for, positive things in this time of the world where things are pretty, just turn on the news. You'd be excited in no time to find out what's going on in the world. But this conversation, I think, is a breath of fresh air. People can really grab onto something, because I feel like when there's chaos, you either fold or you double down.
Well, and I think it's one of those things where in this day and age, more important than ever, I think connection. And I know social media is out there, and that's one form of connection, which you can argue that maybe it's disconnected us more than connected us. But I think that, being face to face and talking to people and getting out there, if again, talking to each other. And I think that's something that's missing in society now. We don't talk to each other. We're on our own little camps and tribes or whatever it may be. And we can't be kind to each other if we're not talking to each other. And I don't think we're as polarized as the media and other outlets make it seem like. Because once we talk to each other, I think we always find that we kind of all want the same thing. We want good health for ourselves and our family. We want our children to grow and thrive. And we just want to be happy. And I think in the end, let's keep pushing that. We do that by talking to each other. We find that out by talking to each other.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to leave it there. I'm talking to our guest, Russ Haddad. You can go to his website, russhaddad.com, and go to Amazon or his website and get the book Growth. It's available right now. Once again, Russ, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Shemaiah. Take care, and it's been a pleasure.